Hey everybody, doing my live read thing like I said I would do. Um, just wanted to say that I've got the manuscript for the Order of the Trident 2 finished. It is with the editor. Um, Most of the supplemental stuff is done. I have to still write the author's notes and the description for Amazon, but other than that, everything is good to go, including the cover, front and back. Spine, I need to get the edited manuscript in order to size it properly, but other than that, we're good to go. So, I guess we'll go ahead and start this. Got The Order of the Trident here by me. I'm going to skip all of the intro stuff forward and all that. While I enjoy reading all of that stuff as well, we're just not going to get into it right now. Alright, Chapter 1, Eldarian. The ancient city filled the valley, once buried beneath a shroud of dust and debris accumulated over a millennia. The streets now teemed with invaders. The ring of pickaxes chipping away at stone echoed off walls and monuments as the seething mass of Dalarai excavated the ruins. Jousting for space, they ignored a few stone spires that soared above them, spared no glances for the delicate carvings that adorned the facades. Faces were turned downwards, focusing on one thing. The sight overflowed with arcane power, stronger than any they'd felt before. None of them knew what had opened the wellspring, and none of them cared. Drawn by a sudden awareness of power that lay beneath the mystical city, they had grabbed whatever tools were at hand and trekked into the valley. Once there, they followed each trickling flow of energy, digging eagerly, sorry about that, hoping to possess even the slightest amount of ancient energy known only to them. Desire turned to obsession, leaving them unwilling slaves to their devotion. They dug tirelessly toward the source, their actions changing them with each scoop of dirt. Their skin blackened with exposure to the corrupted energies, their ears elongated much like those of the Alfar, and their first creation. Their hair leached its color, leaving stringy white locks where various shades had once rested. They continued to dig without rest or sustenance, dying by the thousands. Their greed for power fueled them, removing any ability to stop. All the while, a silent promise poured into their ears, leaving the passage of time and their change unnoticed. A young Druafar working in the alcove felt the head of his pickaxe penetrate the stone and disappear into the void beneath. After working so long in silent concentration, he had to clear his throat before he could speak. "Fazine, we've broken through." His voice rasped from dust and disuse. The elder beside him stopped and stared at the crack in the casket. "Well, what are you waiting for, boy? Gain entry so that we may study it." Resurrect heaved the pickaxe overhead and struck the surface beside the crack. Another piece chipped off. "Hurry up, boy, we haven't got all day." "I've been at this for days without," he swung, putting every ounce of strength into it, "food or break. If you're—" With another swing, the fracture split open, revealing a small hole. "In such a hurry, get me some help." Vazine glared his disappointment at his apprentice. "You're a good lad with potential, and you might realize it if you weren't so damn lazy." Shaking his head, he waved the team forward. The corrupted Dalarai climbed in and went to work, chiseling the stone casing away. Musty air rose out of the hole, and Fazine took a step back. Within minutes, the team had enlarged the hole to expose the mold-covered black walls of a buried room. A large statue of a man clad in thick armor stood in the center, facing them, its material comprised of the same stone as the walls. The purple cloak draped down its black back, glimmering in reflected daylight, seeming to ripple as if alive with energy. A pendant hung around its neck, set with a small drab stone. No mold marred the pendant. Motion behind the statue caught his attention. The far wall reflected the room with a dark haze, the movement of the excavators little more than brief shadows on the polished surface. Resurrect shoved the workers aside and climbed into the tomb for a closer look. He stared into the statue's face, feeling the cold eyes stare back, as if reaching into his soul. Resurrect, what have you found? Is there treasure? His master's voice echoed into the room. Irritation shivered across his skin. There's a statue and a dark mirror, nothing more. Don't be absurd. There has to be more. I no longer feel the power. There's no way it just disappeared into nothingness without being detected. Check for yourself if you don't believe me, Resurrect retorted, snatching the pendant from the statue. He felt it break free of its blackened chain. Glancing at the broken sigil, he stuffed it in his pocket of his brown woolen breeches, hoping no one noticed the alteration of mold and dust clinging to the statue. The elder drew afar, set his foot into one of the carved holes, and carefully climbed into the entrance, keeping his frail body from missing a step and tumbling into darkness. He pressed past the excavators standing just inside the fracture, trapped in the gaze of the towering figure. Wiping the stale air from his nostrils, he took in the ancient sights. A chill ran down his spine, filling the cold, lifeless eyes staring into him. Lost for an eternity in its presence, he heard the words ringing into his head. Now! The booming voice blocked out his senses. Vizine spun around, looking into the darkened face of his apprentice. You startled me, boy. Dropping his guard, he placed his hand on the lad's shoulder and pressed past to inspect the mirror. Resurrect felt the power flowing through him. Why he had chosen him he couldn't say. One thing was certain, though. Vizine would have to go. The elder would only stand in his way. He clenched his fist, feeling newfound strength course through his arms. In a flash, he grabbed his master's tattered clothing and lifted him. Your time is up. I serve a new master now. The aged Druafar struggled against the younger's grasp, feeling his feet leave the ground. Realization set in. He was at the mercy of his apprentice. Dread overflowed him, setting the whispers into motion. The fear, the voice, everything the statue had told him, it was all true. He locked eyes on the mirror, the terrified unknown ready to greet him. Please, boy, have I done you so wrong? That's the last time you call me boy. With ease, he launched Vizine into the dark reflection. It swallowed him like a pool of water. The surface shimmered briefly, growing smaller with each passing moment. Like a pebble tossed into a pond, smiling at the disappearance of his master, he drank in his newfound freedom. A wicked smile stretched across his lips, revealing rapidly pointing teeth. He turned to face the witnesses. Frozen in disbelief and confusion, they stared blankly at the murderous Druafar. He let the power burn to the surface, controlling them with sheer force of will. You see what I can do. Don't give me reason to show you firsthand. Unable to resist his unspoken command, one by one they fell to knee before him. Like tendrils of an unseen force, his power jumped from one excavator to the next, spreading its way from the pit and into the scattered populace. Across the ancient city it traveled, enslaving every last Druafar to him, and by extension, to his master. Looking around the musty tome, he glanced at the mirror one last time. Get to work. I want the rest of the structure uncovered. Take what pieces you can find to construct a grand temple over this site. Let any who wish to bask in the grace of Azarel do so. But mark my words, any who touch the mirror will suffer a fate known only to Vizine. He turned towards the fractured wall and stepped through, into the cloud-blocked sunlight. Looking down at his tattered clothing, he let the energies residing inside him loose, altering the rags into the finest silk garments he could imagine. They erupted forth, covering his black skin with equally black cloth trimmed in gold. Content with his appearance, he climbed from the hole and marched through the sea of Druafar, scrambling to obey his command. There's the first part. Alright. Thousands of Druafar stood in block formation, dressed in makeshift armors and weapons modified from farm tools and crude hides. A great many carried weapons for war, but their number could not supply the entire army built for a single purpose. They stared in silence, looking up at the balcony stretched around the blackened temple overlooking the city. Light brown weeds wrapped their way around, clinging to the repurposed stone. Several strands of vicious barbs followed after, binding themselves into constricting bands. A single figure loomed over them, inspecting the ranks in silent judgment. Resurrect stood at the edge of his balcony. The banister was ornately carved with thousands of tiny depictions of skulls forming the foundation of his empire. The polished dark oak reflected the rapidly passing clouds of gray. He could feel the mist in the air, ready to fall in large droplets at any moment. It was sorely needed, but it wouldn't help his lands any. He ran his fingers across the tip of one of the jagged weeds that had wrapped itself around the railing. A light bit of green ooze made his skin burn from contact. Looking out over the dying kingdom, he felt a bit of remorse allowing it to come to this, though it wasn't entirely his fault. He ran his fingers through his long silver hair draped over his robes, looking down at the desolate wasteland before him. Many of the once majestic stone and wood structures laid in ruin collapsed under their own weight. The ground was dry and full of large cracks. The sparse vegetation was thin and twisted, forming bands that clung to the... Sorry, I got 2 pages sticking together here. Clung to the structures they engulfed. His empire lay before him, dead and overpopulated. The armies held fast, awaiting his words with eager anticipation. Men, women, and children comprised the ranks. No one was too young to wield a sword, one of the few traits remaining from their previous life. The commanders took position in front of the armies, bearing blackened armors and tarnished weaponry that was once elegant. Behind each formation stood a smaller group, comprised of several hundred Uruki. Resurrect looked upon their ranks with envy. Those few were exceptionally skilled with magics he couldn't hope to possess. Not that he didn't have his own type of power. In a fight between himself and their mutated form, he could easily win. He was blessed by Azarel, blessed to set plans in motion and free his imprisoned lord. The Uruki were but a pawn in his evolving game. Yet he couldn't help but envy their mixed magics. There was something about the divine infused arcana that left the body twisted between forms, allowing the agility and grace of an arachnid while retaining the torso of the Druafar. Even the youngest of Uruki had an unnatural ability to harness the most powerful magics. Feeling the water droplets break against his robes, he returned to the present. The rain fell increasingly fast, soaking everything within sight. With the wave of his hand, he pushed the water away, watching beads splash against the invisible barrier that now surrounded him. They joined together, pulling into larger beads before rolling down the sides of the clear sphere. With a final scan of his forces, he extended his hands, letting them prepare themselves for his words. Citizens of Eldarion, time has come for us to expand our empire. This land is no longer able to sustain our number. The rule of our god slowly drains our resources, leaving us with little more than dust and crumpled rock. The time has come for us to spread out like a plague upon the land. We will first make contract with the Hydrafar. Once our cousins have welcomed us into the heart of their lands, we will breed them out until the Druafar are all that remains. From there, we'll resupply and have everything we need to ensure our survival throughout the ages. He smiled at the might before him, unrelenting savagery waiting to be released upon the world, and they awaited his order. Commanders, move out. The armies erupted in cheer of excitement and bloodthirsty screams. The sounds of battle horns filled the air with high-pitched squeals. The collected shouts of the commanders bled together, each group following their superiors. The armies roared to life, shaking the dying ground with footsteps and chants. Clouds of dust formed with the rumble of boots against the dead earth. Despite the falling rain, unable to saturate the ground fast enough, the march sent vibrations through the earth, shaking it to its core. Several of the dilapidated buildings crumbled into huge piles of broken wood and weakened stone, fanning out to create more dust. Upon reaching the dead rings surrounding the city, the massive formation split apart, forming 4 individual armies. Each one turned, aimed for a specific destination. The chants and war cries grew dull with the increased distance. Only the last bit of dust and footprints showed evidence of their existence. Resurrect watched them disappear into the horizon above his dying empire of dust and rubble. A smile formed across his lips, proud of his creation, yet remorseful that he couldn't join them. Though it made sense, each army had a job to do. If he were to he were to interrupt, the whole plan would fall apart. No, he was more suited to remain here, awaiting days when Azara would need a host. Dark God of Chaos, our plan has manifested. It shouldn't be long until you're released from your prison and the world feels your wrath once again. On that day, your brothers will weep for what they've done to you, and you'll stifle their tears with the knowledge that they'll never be worshipped again. Resurrect looked down at the broken pendant hanging around his neck. The split demonic face carved into the onyx sigil shook violently, as if it had a mind of its own. It pulled against the leather bindings, trying to tear itself free. What is it, Azarel? Have I displeased you? Confusion and worry began to set in. He followed every order. Why was he being punished? The pendant shot up, ripping through cloth and leather. Resurrect reached to catch it, but it was too late. In the blink of an eye, it flew out of sight. No, he mourned, feeling a loss greater than any he'd known. Fear and anger sparked inside him. He was powerful, more powerful than any living being. Maybe he could recall it. Forcing all of his will into the tiny black sigil, he tried to locate it, but it was nowhere to be found. Frustration shot through him. How could he do this to me? With ease, he jumped over the banister, free-falling several stories. As if jumping from no more than a few feet, he landed, sending a shower of dust and mud out around him. Questions and anger fueled his mind. He stormed around the corner and toward the sealed onyx doors. He braced himself for the drain the stone would inflict upon him. It was undoubtedly the reason it was used to create the tomb. The strange material had a way of draining his abilities unlike any other. It seemed the stronger the magic, the quicker the drain. If this had the same effect on his lord, he was undoubtedly weak from the eons of exposure. Damn cat needs to leave my door alone. Throwing the doors open, he rushed down the winding stairs, feeling his fear and anger rise with each step. He stepped into the sconce-lit antechamber and stared into the statue. Azarel, why do you betray me so? His voice cracked from the instant barrage, pulling him towards the mirror. He had to brace himself against the booming voice coming from the statue. It was deep and raw, unlike any other he'd heard before. Overcome by the godly presence, he felt his grip waning against the edge. Dust and debris fell from the shaking walls and ceiling with each word. Your purpose has been served. In time, your line will return the pendant to me. At that time, your destiny will be fulfilled, and you will be granted a place of honor at my side. A place of honor at your side, Resurrect scoffed. I had a place of honor. I was ruler of the Drew. As king of Eldarion, I had everything I needed to free you, and now you tell me it's my offspring that will complete the task? A dark laughter echoed through the temple, chilling him to the bone. You forget, Resurrect. Everything you are, everything you have, it all came from me, and I can reclaim it at any time I choose. His anger boiled with news of the betrayal. You are imprisoned in another world. There's no way you can free yourself and exact your revenge without my help. The mirror slowly began to swirl, creating a vortex of purple and blue. The colors twisted together, reaching out towards the rebellious Druafar, like a mystical whirlpool threatening to swallow him whole. Resurrect felt the whispers inside his head. They were less commanding but more intrusive. In this state, he couldn't hide the simplest thoughts from his god. He felt his arms go limp, abandoning his struggle to stay firmly planted. He tried to scream out, but his mouth wouldn't comply. The whipping tether of purple and blue wrapped around him, pulling him towards the mirror. There you are correct, my devoted Resurrect. I'm imprisoned, and you've been a valuable agent in my plot. But you've served your purpose here. It's time you join me. You'll be much better suited for me to adjust your... You'll be much better suited to help me in a position where I can adjust your opinions as I see fit. From this day forth, you'll no longer be known as the Dollar-Eye-Turned Druafar, Resurrect. Join me as the first Night King. You'll command forces against those that seek to evade my influence. With an army of Orcs and Charliette at your command, you'll serve me until such a time arises that your line frees me from this prison. On that day, you'll walk with me as an equal as we reclaim the world. The heavens will weep with the blood of gods upon my return. Resurrect spun uncontrollably faster, feeling the churning in his gut. The vortex had already swallowed him to his waist. He was running out of time. He had to do something. He was not powerless. Even with his Arl's hold on him, he still had his power. He could use the black stone to slow him down. Reaching out with his mind, he felt the edge of the statue. The hold was like that of a scalding pan clenched in his grip. It burned as he held it, feeling his skin become slippery over time. He screamed out, realizing Azarel was screaming too. The dark god's hold over him broken for the moment. He stretched as far as he could, hoping to escape certain doom. The air escaped his lungs. He glanced down, realizing he'd sunk to his shoulders in the spinning whirlpool of magic. He tried to breathe out, but found it impossible. There was no air. There was no light. Only the mixture of spinning colors surrounded him. With his final burst of energy, before what was sure to be his death, he lunged forward, feeling the rough edge of the familiar purple cloak against his fingertips. It burnt, but not nearly as much as it had earlier. Clawing at the mineral, he felt a piece break away. His grip lost, he tumbled into darkness, disappearing behind the blackened surface. The ripples smoothed away to non-existence, leaving little more than memory of the first Druafar king. The black stone statue stood erect in the center of the empty crypt overlooking the entrance. A purple broken shard glimmered on the stone floor beneath, reflecting the glow from the burning oil lamps. That is all for Chapter 1. I am intending to do this about once a week. And we will go until this book is done, and then perhaps once Book 2 comes out near the end of February, we will maybe do it with that one. I am going to be starting on my next book, now that I've got this one at a spot where I can't really do much to it. Which that one's going to be a little different. It'll be my first nonfiction. But I will get into more detail on that as it draws near. And then immediately after that one, I'll be getting Book 3 of the Order of the Trident done. It's about half written currently. I just have to finish it up. That is all I've got for now. I hope you guys have had a good, happy new year, and hopefully 2017 will be better for everybody. We will talk to you guys later. Bye.